Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I am here at the News Forum where all voices matter. It's time for our monthly panel. Of course, the Honorable Joe Oliver rejoins us. He is a former Minister of Finance and Minister of Natural Resources for the Government of Canada. The Honorable Gary Marr returns, former Alberta Cabinet Minister, as well as Alberta agent, that is to say representative in Washington, D.C. He's now head of the Canada West Foundation. And returning on behalf of Senator Pupatello, we're very pleased to have with us the Honorable Candice Bergen. She is a former Member of Parliament for Manitoba and former leader of the official opposition. Welcome to all of you.
Great to be here.
Well,
thanks, Tony. Great to be on.
It's great to have you all. You know, we obviously tape this show, which means that we don't know necessarily what's going to happen between when we tape and when we actually get to broadcast. Things might change 100 times since then, but we do know there are tariffs imposed by President Trump on Canada on at least some goods. We know that Canada is reacting to that. Doug Ford has announced a 25% surcharge on Ontario energy to the exports to the United States. There are all these moving parts, but I do want to get your reaction. We do know that tariffs are with us and that this is part of the Canada-U.S. economic trade war. So, Joe Oliver, why don't you start us off?
Okay, well, I don't know any more than you do what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. But I think it's no hyperbole to say that the world has changed. And even if Trump backs off completely and we go ahead seemingly as before, that won't change a fundamental political and attitudinal reality, which is that we haven't been able to rely on our closest friend and neighbor not to take action which would deliberately undermine our economic interests, and is doing so in a way that doesn't seem entirely consistent with his own economic self-interest. So we have to make some fundamental decisions that we've all talked about over the last few years to strengthen our economy, reduce our vulnerability, increase our resilience, broaden our trade, improve our productivity, and make us a stronger and more prosperous country. We can't delay that any longer, and I think the need for transformative change is frankly undeniable, and we simply have to get on with it. It's going to take a new government, but hopefully that is coming soon.
Gary Marr, your thoughts on where we stand right now?
Well, I think the Canadian public, both provincially and the Canadian public nationally, have expected a response on the part of the Prime Minister and all of the premiers of Canada. One thing to note is that by the time this goes to air, we'll have a new Prime Minister of Canada. We don't know whether that Prime Minister is going to stick with the script that Prime Minister Trudeau has laid out. Moreover, we don't know who the next Prime Minister of Canada will be after general election. And again, we don't know, whether or not there will be a different approach to the United States with tariffs and such. As a consequence of that vacuum nationally, I think premiers have really stepped up their game. And I think that whether it's Premier Ford or Premier Smith or Premier Eby, Premier Canoe, I'm here in Winnipeg today. They've all had pretty strong responses, and I think it's been good for Canada. And some of the things that Joe talked about is exactly what premiers are talking about. So Premier Houston of Nova Scotia has tabled legislation that says, pretty strong approach to getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers. We've seen the responses of Premier Ford taking off American liquor from shelves, something that they buy $1 billion worth of every year. You've seen Premier Moe of Saskatchewan talk about the need for potash in the United States. 90% of the potash used in the U.S. is imported, almost all of it from the province of Saskatchewan. The only thing that I would comment on, though, in terms of some of our reaction is
Save your comment. We're going to take a brief break. We're going to hear from you. Then we're going to hear from Candice. Please join us after these commercial messages.